Okay, for more now on the impact of New York's new congestion pricing, we're joined by Jonathan Peters. Jonathan is a professor of finance and data analytics at City University of New York's College of Staten Island. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Sean. Thank you for having me.
I think that Karina touched upon it there at the end, talking about, was it Stockholm, Singapore, and London? Like every major city has hideous traffic problems, some worse than others. Why is New York doing this now?
Well, this is kicked around for a very, very long time, Sean. I've been watching this thing for at least 15 to 25 years. I mean, again, obviously the key thing is they're going to use this money to subsidize the subway system and the bus system, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, our transit systems. But the other thing, of course, is we already have a lot of tolls. About a third of the nation's tolls are collected in New York metro area, and 75% of it goes to subsidized transit already. So this is another, well, they said $500 and change million a year that's going to go to subsidized transit.
I think that there are a lot of people scratching their heads. Will that really happen, or will the $500 million go elsewhere? There's a history of that kind of thing. But what are the main economic impacts of this policy on businesses in the affected areas? And we know that fewer cars are right now entering Manhattan.
Yeah, and then the other piece is the freight movements. You know, you have to get your trucks, and they're making it very expensive for trucks to come in and out of the city, and we don't really have a rail system to provide us with cargo services. I think one of the previous interviews, they were talking about the fact that people might not choose to go into Chinatown for the weekend or visit, you know, and that's a challenge. I was surprised they did it 24/7. The introduction of the pricing, I thought they might give the weekends free.
Yeah, interesting. So how do you gauge the effectiveness of this program? I mean, we know that fewer cars are going in and people are paying this money, and as you mentioned, that there are going to be some entities, companies that pay quite a bit more. And also the early signs that show the public just doesn't like this at all.
Well, you know, we're waiting. This is supposed to be a pilot program, Sean. It was certified under the Federal Highway Administration as a pilot program. So I'm looking forward, my colleagues and I around the city, all the academics are looking forward to seeing the data, but we really don't have much. The other thing is that we're waiting to hear about how much revenue they're even collecting. But it will take probably 6 to 8 months, maybe even longer, because sometimes businesses might change their behavior. You know, people might decide, you know what, I'd like to be on the edge of the zone, or maybe outside the zone in New Jersey or Long Island. So it could have some impacts over time. It's had it in London. London had some impacts. The other thing, we're already seeing border problems where people are trying to park just outside the zone so they can jump on transit. It's been a very cold week here in New York, and some people might be making their first attempts at taking the bus. I think after they do that, I'm expecting it might take 6 to 8 months before people kind of stabilize their behaviors. Because, you know, you take that bus for the first week because you're annoyed at paying $9, but I'm highly suspicious there's going to be a lot of rebound in the traffic numbers.
Right.
As people realize we have a lot of what I call latent demand, what economists call latent demand, where there's people who aren't driving right now, not because of the cost, but they're not driving because of the congestion.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I remember it was like $4 to go through the tunnel. Now, if you're a semi-truck, what is it? It's more than 100.
Oh, I have a hard time keeping track, Sean, but it's over 100 and change. And the other thing is, of course, it's causing diversionary impacts. You know, people in New Jersey are getting more traffic as the trucks and cars try to route around this. It disrupts, you know, the normal flow.
Interesting. Okay, and we also know President Trump has spoken out against these fees. And so what does he want to happen? And what role do you think that he can play in this? Because let's make no mistake about it, these last 8 days, he has been riding a crest of almost absolute power in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, it's authorized under the Federal Highway Authority gave it a pilot program status, and the president could, I don't know, we have a number of legal cases in New York City. There's a number of court cases over this, being the agency, the MTA, is being sued by different individuals. So president, I guess, could weigh in. I'm not sure exactly where his power, the border of his power is.
What about, because I know that they are affected, but what about Uber, taxis, other car sharing services? To what degree are they affected? Because that's the way a lot of people navigate through Manhattan.
No, and they've got a different fee structure, a somewhat different fee structure. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to participate in the actual rate setting. You know, the board that set the rates, I might have encouraged a somewhat different structure. They're paying a per ride fee, because you're right, John, we don't want to destroy mobility in the city, right? And taxis and Uber and Lyft and stuff like that are important mobility options, both for low income households and high income. like you're going to the doctor or picking up a heavy package, you know?
Sure. Jonathan, not a lot of time here, but let's kind of educate quickly the people on the quality of the subway system in Manhattan and why it does need a massive cash infusion.
Again, you're riding around in New York City, you're riding around in the tunnels and main infrastructure. Some of it goes back to 1904, some of it goes back to the 1930s. We've replaced the rolling stock, but it's a massively expensive system, Sean, and we have such high ridership. The other thing is the ridership is down significantly post-pandemic, 700,000 riders a day.
Ooh, okay, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Jonathan Peters, good stuff. Thank you so much for your insight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.